guys, welcome back. I feel like it's been about a month since I last filmed the video, and I'm now back from my trip from Taiwan, and I just want to ease back into my filming, ease back into work. I'm still quite jet lagged. Taiwan is 15 hours ahead of Vancouver, so I was only there for 10 days, so I spent a few days getting off jet lag on that side, and then once I was kind of like feeling normal again, it was time to come back, so I'm quite woozy right now. So I just want to take it easy today and tell you a bit about my trip. A lot of you have expressed being very interested in going to Taiwan but never been there. So as someone who was born there but grew up here in Canada, I am still very much a foreigner when I go back. So kind of just tell you my experience very broadly and what I did there. And then after this, I want to go back up to the plant room and show you some new leaves that have come in while I was gone, which I was not really expecting because 10 days is not a very long time. Certainly some leaves take more than 10 days to even expand, but I was very pleasantly surprised when I came back. So if you're not interested in the trip recap, I will put in a timestamp for you guys in the description. Skip on ahead to the plants, I will not be offended. So my trip to Taiwan was pretty short relative to like how far away it is, but this is not meant to be like a travel guide for like a first timer to Taiwan necessarily, because like I said, I was born there. I've been there quite a few times throughout my life, and I lived there for 6 months around when I was like 20-ish. So this trip was more to do with spending quality time with my dad. I went with my dad and my sister. Well, me and my sister flew there together. My dad was already there with my uncle because they had been cycling in Japan and they met us in Taiwan. So this trip was kind of split into two halves, kind of. The first half was in Taipei with my dad and my uncle and my sister. And then after a few days, my uncle flew back home to Texas, and then me and my dad and my sister were on our own for the rest of the trip. So we did do some sightseeing kind of things, and then other things we were just kind of like, let's choose a place to hang out. I didn't vlog this trip, but I did take some video footage. So I'm just gonna like kind of scroll through my phone in chronological order and tell you what I did. So even though it was the tail end of September, it's still extremely hot in Taiwan at this time of year. When we landed in Taipei, it was really, really rainy. And I was actually kind of scared we weren't gonna be able to land because it was typhoon season in Taiwan, which happens every year. But this year there was some devastating flooding in the eastern part of Taiwan. But because of the typhoon, it was slightly cooler. It was like in the early 30s Celsius, so that's around, I have my converter here, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So really warm, very, very humid. And then as the typhoon kind of blew away, it just got progressively hotter throughout the trip. Like unbearably hot. Like for me, living in the Pacific Northwest, I love the rain. I love the cold. It's way too hot for me. So if you want to go to Taiwan, you're not used to the super tropical heat, I would recommend not to go outside of like November to maybe March. That's probably like the most comfortable temperature to be in Taiwan, because a lot of things you want to see is going to require you to be outside, like night markets, like walking around the city and stuff. And rather than spending so much money on taxis and transport and being able to like walk around and see the city, it's better just to go there during the cooler months, in my opinion. I also didn't realize this when I was going, but I actually went at like a really bad time for fruit. So Taiwan produces some amazing fruit, but I went at the tail end of mango season, so there wasn't a lot of mangoes to be had. And then it was before the fall winter fruit, like one of my favorite fruits. It's called lianwu. What is the English word for lianwu? It's called rose apple. I don't know how to describe the texture. It's got a kind of appley taste, not really that appley, but it has a really crisp, light, not very dense texture. And I can eat this like popcorn. Like it's figs and the I can eat like one after the other. Just like sit there, watch TV, and just shovel this into my mouth. It's not very filling, and it wasn't quite the season yet, and mango season was kind of over. So I was kind of just stuck with pineapples and watermelon. But okay, before we get sidetracked, we landed in Taipei. We went straight into dim sum, which was like kind of devastating because it was so much food and I was just off the airplane. I was not feeling very good. And then we went out to dinner at an izakaya with my uncle and my dad. And it was so nice because I had never been to Taiwan with my dad, especially, well, with either of my parents really, as a full-grown adult. So I feel like this time either Taiwan has changed a lot, or I am just paying attention. It's probably I'm paying attention now, but maybe it's a bit of both. I definitely noticed so much more about like the cultural and social etiquette in Taiwan that I hadn't really thought about too much, but I'll talk about that later. The second day, we all went to a department store. Department stores are kind of like a faded part of the past for North America, but in Asia, it's very much a thriving industry because I think it's mainly like a climate thing. It's so uncomfortable to be outside and shopping like a high street or something for most of the year. So department stores are where people tend to shop. And my favorite part of department stores is the basement. So usually like there's a basement level, maybe like basement 1, basement 2, which is a food court. But the Asian department store food courts are just like top tier. It's not that it's better food than what you can get out in the city in like the mom and pop shops, but it's better food than in the average North American food court. And there's like also like sweet shops and like dessert shops, like little bakery stands and stuff. We went to a department store called Lalaport, which was a newish, like it wasn't there the last time I went to Taiwan. There wasn't too much exciting stuff there. We had Moss Burger, which is like a Japanese burger joint, which I found out that my great uncle brought to Taiwan. And then this whole Moss Burger chain ended up doing a lot better in Taiwan than it did in Japan. But my dad kept telling us to save our appetite for dinner because he had made reservations to a Japanese restaurant called Mitsui, which I think is part of like a quite a large restaurant and department store group, but it was an omakase place. And omakase is like a set menu in a sushi restaurant typically, and the sushi chef will just make like one piece of this, serve it to you, and it's like in a very defined chef's choice kind of menu. And the food was absolutely delicious. The chef was from Japan, and it was really nice because it was a really strong mixture of Japanese imported ingredients, but also a lot of things that are native to Taiwan. And every time I thought that the food was about to be done, just more food was coming. So the first day I was so stuffed with dim sum. The second day I was like bursting with sushi. So that to me was probably the best sushi experience I've ever had. Maybe it would be tied with the time me and my best friend went to Tokyo together, and we stood in line at Tsukiji Market and we had omakase there. We stood in line in the pouring rain, just getting soaked for an hour and a half, had sushi. That was super memorable. I want to say this experience, the sushi was maybe better. It was at least equal, but maybe I was paying more attention to the food, and it just was a plus dining experience. And then the following day was our last day in Taipei before going to Tainan. So me, my dad, and my sister, because my uncle already left, we went back to our old neighborhood where we used to live. This is the apartment where I was born in, where I spent the first few years of my life, and where I spent the 6 months that I lived in Taiwan. And it looks so much just the same. It's so strange. It looks just like how I remembered it. A lot of the little restaurants and little stores that we used to frequent are still there, which blows my mind because Taipei real estate is very expensive. There was even a Blockbuster down the road. Explain to me how that's still there. I don't know. And then after that, we went to Ximending, which is, I guess, like traditionally like the western gate of the city, which is a very well-known area in Taipei, but I don't think we should have gone there because I didn't really think too much about it. I just knew that it was a popular place. We would like go there and like do a little bit of shopping, but it's very much like for young people, high school age people. So it was like Labubus and like anime stuff, just stuff that I wasn't very interested in. And like yeah, there wasn't really anything there for us, but we did walk around for a little bit before we got too hot. And then we went to a night market called Raohe Yeshi, which is Raohe Street Night Market, which was, I don't think the one that I typically go to. I think usually go to Tonghua Jie Yeshi, like Tonghua Street Night Market. The most famous one in Taipei, if you're gonna go, is Shilin Night Market, or I think you would just call it Shilin Night Market in English. That one is quite big. I've been there before, but it's like a bit of a journey. So we went to one that was kind of closer to us, and the night markets in Taiwan are so fun. But again, if it's cooler weather, it's infinitely better because it's super crowded. There's a lot of people cooking. It's just extremely hot in there, and you don't really want to stand in one place waiting too long in line. So you have to be very selective about what food you wait for, but basically all the good vendors have a lineup. So yeah, if you're gonna go there, to a night market, just try to go in the cooler weather. Usually when I go to the night market, what I actually get changes, but my staples, there's two staples for me. The barbecue corn, which is kind of like, it's not sweet corn, it's more like a chewy, non-sweet corn, and they brush this like spicy, savory sauce on it, like put it over the fire, it kind of bakes into the corn, and then they brush it again and it bakes into the corn, so there's like a lot of saucy flavor on it. And then the other thing I get is stinky tofu, which is a Taiwanese specialty. It stinks so bad before it's cooked. Once it's cooked, it doesn't stink anymore, but it's a very much like, I don't know a lot of foreigners who love stinky tofu. I will say that, but it is a very famous Taiwanese thing. The stinky tofu we had at that night market was meh. It was like whatever. It was one of those like ones that was in a brick and mortar shop, not in a mobile stall, and it did not hit the spot at all, but it's okay. I wasn't super hungry and I had spent 2 days being absolutely stuffed, so I was really happy to not eat that much that night. We also had some mango shaved ice after that, which was really nice, but because mango season was kind of ending, usually when mangoes are in season, which is like the summertime, you'll have fresh mango, but we had frozen mango. It was still kind of icy in the middle. It was still nice, but would have been nicer if it was full-on mango season. And then the next day we took the high-speed rail down to Tainan, which is in the south of Taiwan. I had never been to Tainan before. I've been to the south, but not specifically Tainan. And it was so ridiculously hot. It was like the typhoon was over. It was sunny. The sun was so strong. We're so much closer to the equator. And I was just like, you walk down the street 3 blocks, sweat, like just sweat streaming down your face. And we walked to, the first day we got there, we walked to have beef soup, which I guess is like it's quite well known in the south part. On the way there, I saw so many mimosa trees or sensitive plant trees, which were so beautiful. I've never seen them before because they're more of a thing in the south. You don't really see these in Taipei, or I don't see them in Taipei. And I've never seen one in person before. And I really wondered, and I didn't take any footage of this, whether it would still be sensitive in a tree form, like would the leaves still shrink when you touch it? And they didn't. I don't know if I was disappointed by that. I thought maybe it would still be sensitive. It's not. But nonetheless, they were beautiful. The beef soup was delicious. Delicious. It's like a broth with beef in it. My favorite way to eat rice is with a brothy soup. You take your rice. Ideally, the rice is kind of like al dente and it's got a little bit of chew to it. Take a spoonful of rice, you dip it in the soup, and then you eat it, and it's like so juicy. And then our days in Tainan were pretty relaxed. We spent some time at the apartment, just kind of like chilling. We went to fruit markets. We went to Kaohsiung, which in Kaohsiung in English. We went to visit my cousin's coffee shop in Kaohsiung. We had dinner there, some dessert, some coffee. I brought him some coffee and some Canadian candies. There was a really interesting store that was really close by to the apartment, which I had never heard of before, but I don't think this exists in Taipei as of right now, but it's called Hard Off. Listen, I don't know why it's called Hard Off, but it's a chain of, I guess you could call it a thrift store, but most, if not all, but the vast majority of goods was imported from Japan. So I was really excited to go because I wanted to pick up some like small home decor knickknacks, but I didn't end up finding anything. There was just there's a lot of cool stuff, but not, I didn't want it enough to bring it home. But there's also like high-end handbags, watches, tons of guitars and other musical instruments. There was like electronics, like microphones. Could have gotten a microphone. There was just a lot of stuff. It would be the kind of place, if I lived there, I'd be going there on a weekly basis, just kind of treasure hunting. There's quite a few locations as well. We also went to visit, this is a very touristy thing, like I don't think any local ever goes here, but a department store called Hayashi, which is the oldest department store in Tainan. It was like 100 years old. It was built during the Japanese occupation. So Taiwan was occupied by Japan in the early part of the 1900s. So my grandparents' generation and their parents, they all lived under Japanese occupation. And to this day, Japanese cultural influences and even like mannerisms and cuisine and it's all over the place. So Hayashi is like a smallish department store by modern day standards, and it's basically one big gift shop. So every floor is kind of like different types of like souvenirs and stuff like that. And at the top there is a dessert, kind of like some food. And we had one of my favorite desserts of all time, which is douhua. It's like really soft dessert tofu, and that you have like syrup on it, and you can add other things like red bean or like taro, peanut, and it's served cold, and sometimes there's like little bits of like slushy ice in it. It's so refreshing and freaking delicious. Like when it's hot and you want dessert, there are so many cooling desserts in Taiwan. Personally, my favorite is the dessert tofu. I could have that every day. I've always loved it as a child. I will always choose that as my first choice. And we also went to a night market in Tainan, which was the Huayuan Yesi, which is the garden night market, the flower garden night market. I don't know how they would translate that. It was bigger than the one we went to in Taipei, but the food was better. But it was so crowded. So crowded. It was also a long weekend when we were there, so it was extra crowded. I found that in Tainan there were more areas where older architecture, smaller buildings that were built in the like late 1800s, early 1900s were preserved. And I'm not really sure why that is. It might just be that in Taipei there was the need to tear it down and make like high rises and stuff. So overall it was 10 days of being very hot, eating so much, and just spending a lot of quality time with my dad and my sister. And I was kind of thinking about the trip and what my takeaways are. I feel like the two main takeaways were, I kind of realized, I knew this about my dad, but I really saw it in action when we were kind of like walking down this big flight of stairs, and he's like just a boom, 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 down like a little kid. And he's 70 years old. And it really like kind of drilled into me the importance of taking care of my health at the age that I'm at, exercising, like eating right, because I want to be as mobile as he is at his age. Like just last year, he did, if you guys, I don't know if you guys have this everywhere. I don't know. This is a thing for sure in Vancouver. It's called the Grand Fondo, which you cyclists race up Whistler Mountain, and it's up a mountain, and it's like 150 kilometers or something. And he did it at 70 years old, or just under 70 years old, which was incredible to me. And I do want to be that fit at that age. And the other takeaway was I really realized how nice it is in Taiwan, and I can really appreciate why so many people are there. Like I saw so many more foreigners, myself included, but like so many more obvious foreigners in Taiwan this time around, because Taiwan, even though the climate is very uncomfortable because of how humid and hot it is most of the year, the people are so nice, so hospitable, so welcoming. It's so easy to like talk to a stranger and they just give you their full attention. People are just in general very courteous and super mindful of strangers, everyone. And even though it's so densely populated, you won't see litter on the streets. The streets are so clean. Yeah, maybe some cigarette butts here and there, but like not garbage, not like empty water bottles. And it's not public service workers going through and cleaning everything. People are just like cleaning up after themselves, and you don't really see garbage cans very often. This is also the case in Japan, where there's not a lot of public trash cans. You just kind of hold on to your trash until you see a trash can. You don't just like throw it on the ground. And then like walking down the sidewalk, you're not like kind of having to move over for big groups of people. This is one of the things that my dad always talked about. I've talked about this before on YouTube. So if you remember this from a past video, you've been around for a long time. But my dad always taught us as children, like when you're walking down the sidewalk in a group and there's other people there, you walk in a single file so that they're not walking around you. And I always thought it was so annoying because I'd be like walking with my friends or walking with my cousin talking, and they're like,
walk in a single file. Don't walk next to each other.
And I always kind of thought that my dad was the exception, but it turns out he's kind of the rule in Taiwan. It's just people are just like that. I remember we were walking down a street. It was next to a Costco, and there's a big family like with a stroller and like a bunch of kids and like two parents. And then I was fully prepared to walk off the sidewalk to like let them pass. But when I was walking off the sidewalk and it was like behind a tree, as I walked past the tree, like they had all moved off the sidewalk for us, which just seems like such a silly small thing, but that's not the norm here in Vancouver. So it was very refreshing. It was really like, I've very much appreciated just the general safety and feeling like everyone was kind of looking out for each other and didn't want to bother each other. Even in like the night market when it was incredibly crowded and you're kind of just like walking like this and somebody like bumped into my dad and he was just like, oh, sorry. But when you're in a crowd that crowded, you kind of get numb and it almost feels like me against you somehow. Do you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't feel like the kind of place where people are going to be very mindful of like bumping into people and stuff. A lot of people were asking me if I was going to go into anything like very plant specific. And I did think about it, but the plant specific places I had been recommended or were on my list were so far away from everything. I didn't want to drag everyone out like, you know, an hour out the way to see some plants that they weren't interested in. So I was more so like kind of enjoying the plants that were like on the way. Like one thing that was interesting was like the amount of plants that are just kind of like out in front of shops, like little mom and pop shops will have like beautiful Dracaena. You'll be walking past like a mechanic shop and they'll just have like platycerium up the wall. Like it's just kind of part of their everyday life. And in terms of what I brought back, in terms of what I purchased to bring back, it was very little and I'm pretty proud of myself. I didn't buy anything that wasn't necessary. I just bought some tiny little things. I brought some postcards in the Hayashi department store that I was talking about that was like 100 years old. There were some cute postcards that I thought maybe I'll put into a little frame. This one is, I don't know when it was made. I feel like these were old advertisements. This one's for like a Taiwanese railway system. I was thinking of putting them in tiny little frames, but I don't have the frames, so I'll take my time looking for frames. I got a pair of jeans from Uniqlo, which seems silly because we have Uniqlo here, but for those of you who don't know, Uniqlo in Asia, the sizing is a little bit different. So a small here versus small there. The small is much smaller in Asian Uniqlo, but the length of bottoms tend to be a little bit shorter. I don't know if that's true, but to me, they seem a little bit shorter. So I bought a pair of jeans that are like wide leg, but they don't drag on the floor for me, so it was worth it to buy it there. This sun is getting really annoying. And with that, I am trying to avoid the sun in my eyes. Let's go back up to the plant room and look at some new leaves. Okay, so back in the plant room, the last video I did was kind of like chopping off a lot of ugly leaves, cleaning things up in my tent, and I was spraying everything down to treat for mites, possibly. And I'm very happy to report that I don't see pest damage in the tent. There was like one leaf out on this shelf that had some mighty kind of damage, but overall, I didn't see any new thrips damage. Knock on wood. And it was a lot more growth than I was expecting in the 10 days I was gone. Like I said, it's not that much time, but when I came back, I was seeing a lot of leaves that had grown, like, you know how I have these like little grids in my tent? A lot of leaves had like grown through the grid and into things, and it was a lot of rescuing things on my first day back and like obviously watering the plants, but I actually didn't have to water everything. Nothing in this room was bone dry, even though I only reduced the hours. Actually, did I even reduce the hours? I kind of forgot what I did with the timers because it was in such a rush at the end. But usually it's on from 8 to 8 and I only reduced it from 9 to 7. So it's only like, it was on for 10 hours and the plants did not fully dry out in that time. Where do I even begin? Okay, let's start with something. Oh, let's start with this one because it's close to me. This is one of my Carla Bebebs and it's one of my holdbacks. Originally I held it back because in my propagation dome, fungus gnat, this one had gotten thrips damage on one of the older leaves, which is not even on the plant anymore. And then I held it back after that because the leaves were kind of like quite long. Hopefully you can kind of see that they're quite elongated, but this new leaf is so cute. It's grown so long. It was actually sitting on the shelf, like it had grown past this deli cup, so it was kind of hitting the bottom. So I kind of maneuvered it so it wouldn't bend the tip, but it's so pretty. In person, the sinus is quite pink, but I don't know if it's going to pick up on the camera, but I love the venation on it and the color is so nice. I really hope that this very ultra elongated shape continues. Actually, I'll show you two of my other holdbacks. Actually, no, I'll just show you one that's a little bit more different to that one. This one is more BVEB heavy, and look at this new leaf. It's so dark. Let's show you side by side the siblings. I loved both of these because they're quite elongated, but quite almost like rectangular. Like this looks like a chicken drumstick. It's so rounded on the top. The lobes are very tight together and the lobes are really small as well. And it doesn't taper down dramatically. This one is one of my favorites, but I also fell in love with this one when I came back. Love the venation on this one. I think it's not going to be quite as dark as this one. All the leaves on this one are quite dark compared to this. Hopefully you can see, but I really love these two. I'm sure I have already sold ones that I may love more, but I'm happy with these two. They're different enough. If you're in the States and you wanted to get one from this batch, I did send, I think 4 or 5 to Pao and Josh, which they're going to be selling on their 4K live on Palm Street. So whenever they hit 4,000 followers on Palm Street, they're going to do that live. They got stuff from a whole bunch of sellers. It's going to be a really fun live. It's just going to be very diverse offering of plants. So if you're not already following them on Palm Street, please go follow them because I'm really antsy for this live to happen. My contaminated Carla put out a new leaf and I rarely get to show her with a fresh leaf. Actually, that's a lie. I do show this plant often when it's got a new leaf, but it's been a while since a nice new leaf has grown. I think this leaf must have just emerged when I was leaving and it expanded so fast because I didn't even really recall it having a new leaf coming out. Maybe I'm wrong, but it also has flowered again. I really do need to repot it. Like, I don't think I'm going to use it as a mother plant anytime soon, so I might chop it. Yeah, this pot is really full of roots, but this was a really nice leaf to come out and I'm really glad I did all that chopping because it had the space to expand perfectly. By the way, I did also send selflings of this plant to Pao and Josh. They were like 1 to 2 leaf seedlings when I sent them, so by the time they're ready for sale they might be like 3 leaf seedlings. My Carla Wu oneself also put out a new leaf. It's looking really nice. There's some like sticky stuff on the leaf, so it's not pest damage. It's just kind of sticky mucilage. I'm looking forward to this hardening off because I want to see if that like kind of dusty mite looking damage comes back on it, because this was definitely the worst plant for that dusty mite stuff. It's that mite damage that shows up on old leaves, or what I think is mite damage. So we will see. It's flowering again. It's very consistent. And this is relevant to the next plant I'm going to show you. This is my Carla Lux, which is my favorite luxuriance hybrid that I own. And I have been waiting for this for so long, but it's finally flowering. I'm kind of been holding off on breeding lately because of space reasons, but this is one that I'm really excited for. I'm going to be collecting the pollen if it gives me pollen on this one and putting it on the Carla. Even though I cut a lot of the leaves off and I said I wasn't going to breed with it, I'm going to assess the roots when the time comes and see if it can handle being pollinated and growing berries. But this is a cross that I've been talking about wanting to do for the longest time, and it has finally flowered for me. I know this is not going to be the first time this has been done, but I haven't personally seen a Carla Lux cross back to Carla and what that might look like. I've seen other like Lux hybrids cross back to Velvet, and I really love the results from it because oftentimes it will look kind of like a Lux hybrid, but every now and then you'll see quite a velvety plant with just a really nice bolete texture, but very much on the velvety side, and that's what I'm hoping for this cross. I don't really know the rate of velvety offspring versus like sub-velvety or glossy offspring. Don't know if a lot of them will end up looking like Lux. Not sure, but I'm just excited for this cross. My Carla Black Widow Michelle that I got from Buzz Plants. This leaf was already out, but it was quite small when I left, and it is now pretty much hardened off and it looks beautiful. It's not quite as wavy as older leaves have been, but I'm glad to see that it's finally sizing up. I'm going to be repotting it soon because I do see some kind of rotty roots in there, but luckily it hasn't really affected the last two leaves, but I don't want to really leave this in the substrate too long. Usually I'm not too fussed about root rot if it's a little bit and I can see a lot more healthy roots kind of outpacing the dying rotty roots, but this to me looks like a little bit dicey, and because the roots are so fine, like there are healthy roots in here, but I would say it's not necessarily outpacing the dying ones. So I want to get it out of here in any case. And I don't know, I think this is tree fern pond, but maybe I want to put it into something more pond heavy. I'm not super confident with this plant because it's never grown super robustly for me. And I don't know if it's me or if it's the plant, but this new leaf is absolutely stunning. And it's always stayed quite black, even like well after hardening, which I love about this plant. I do hope the ripply wavy margins come back, but for now, I'm just glad it's sizing up. Before I left, I did a whole afternoon of seedling repotting off camera, and I was graduating plants out of communal trays and out of cell trays into their own 3-inch pot. I just want to show you some. This is going to drip a lot, but this one from Pao and Josh has been growing so nicely. This one is FTG Crystal by Carla Soul Reaper. So the FTG Crystal from Josh is a very flat sinus one. It's gorgeous. And then the Carla Soul Reaper was one that Pao got at IAS last year, and I saw that plant in person. It was so, so pretty. Like, it was front and center at the Homebody booth because they were selling a lot of plants from Tazula, and that was a Tazula plant. And together, it looks like, so far at least, it looks like my seedling is a flat sinus one. Show this to you without dripping on my pants. This is the newest leaf. Every leaf has been quite a flat sinus and quite wavy. Like even from the littlest leaf, you can see it's super wavy and it's just like a little arrow shaped, and it's maintained that with every single leaf. And this newest leaf is a nice jump up. So I think it's about to be like exponentially jumping up in size. It's about that age now. And so we'll see if the flat sinus becomes more pronounced or less pronounced, but so far it's looking really good. There were so many seedlings in that shipment. I won't be able to show them all to you, but this one is BVEP. This one is T1 by Tazula F4. And this one was one that I repotted right before I left, like maybe a couple of days before I left, into Tree Fern Pond. And it's been rooting out. Well, I can see from the top it's rooting out. I don't really see much from the side of the pot, but I put out this leaf when I was away and it's looking really BVEP-y at this point. Hopefully it'll darken up. I'm giving it a good amount of light. It's under these shells right here. It's pretty well lit. It's not blasting with light, but it's pretty bright. And then my snake oil from this is not a recent repot, but it's been trucking along so well. This plant grows so fast. Look at this snake oil now. It put out a leaf while I was gone. It's this new taquito here, so it hasn't expanded yet, but it's looking so good. The pinky veins are starting to show up. I'm really excited for this leaf here. And it's not a ton of roots. Like there's some on the side of the pot, a few poking out down here. I'm really antsy to get it sizing up quicker because I would just want to see what the variegation turns into. I have a feeling it's going to always be this all over minty and not blocky, which is kind of what I was hoping for. But if a few green sectoral chunks show up every now and then, that will be cool too. I've noticed a lot of Black Widow Michelle hybrids tend to throw a lot of variegated offspring, not always minty, sometimes just kind of like sectoral. And I'm wondering, is that from the Michelle or from the Black Widow? Do you guys know? Because they also have, Connor and Chantal also did a World War, which is Mr. Worldwide by Waraquianum. And they crossed that with Josh's Dark Web, which is possibly, it was sold to him as Michelle, but it was later turned out to be not Michelle. I forget. If you guys know the lore behind that, let me know. But that cross also yielded variegated offspring, which Bao and Josh have been selling on their website launch and in the lives. Actually, I'm not sure about the lives. I know they did just launch their website and they did have a few variegated, they called it World Wide Web, which is World War by Dark Web. They did sell a few of the variegated offspring from that, but I'm not sure which is the culprit for giving so much variegation. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite acquisitions of this year. I said it before, but I love this plant. I'm really excited for it to grow big. A plant that I should have repotted before I left, but I didn't, but it does need a bigger pot, is my BVEP by DF from Nick and Corbin. And I came back to this behemoth of a leaf. Like, I was very lucky that this leaf grew out exactly into like an empty open space because it didn't grow into anything. It's still a little bit floppy, but I think it's pretty much done expanding. And it's so big. This plant is unstoppable. Like, I can't believe it's continued to size up to this degree in such a root-bound pot. Before I left, it started to flower, but it's starting to look like this inflow. Hopefully you can see it. It's starting to die off a little bit, so I don't think it's going to fully emerge. Not that I'm trying to breed with it or anything, but I was really surprised that, to me, this is a seedling. It's obviously not a seedling size anymore, but to me, this was like a young plant, and I was surprised that it was flowering so quickly for me, and I wasn't sure if that was like a BVEP or a DF trait, but for me, BVEP has never flowered, but I'm also not very good at growing BVEP, but I'm just overall so impressed by this plant. I love the shape. It's just like such a nice triangular shape, and I love the texture of it too. It's got these little micro veins kind of growing all over it. It definitely has these like kind of blood vessel texture. It's also got this like waviness that is a feature I love in a lot of plants, like Midnight Velvet. I really love this waviness. It's not quite as twisty as Midnight Velvet, but this plant is just gorgeous, and I'm just so impressed by how robust it is. But I really do need to repot it at this point because it's probably going to start dropping lower leaves at a faster pace, and I just want to see how big it gets. But I'm also a little bit scared because it's sized up so much in a 4-inch pot. Overall, this has just been such a rewarding plant to grow. And if you want Nick and Corbin's plants, again, subscribe to Pal and Josh Phyto Rot Plant Co. on Palm Street because they will be selling Nick and Corbin seedlings. Not this cross, but they've got other seedlings they've sent over. And then before I left, this is not really a growth update, just a update of a new plant I have. Before I left, Charmaine surprised me with a cutting of Blood Moon. So if you guys will remember, we did a kind of multi-plant trade with Dania, and we sent her some plants, she sent us some plants, and we were meant to like kind of cut them up and share amongst each other. And she had the Blood Moon, and she finally cut it. She said it's been growing nonstop for her. So I was actually not expecting a cutting so soon, but I now have a Blood Moon. This is more to establish that I now have the Blood Moon cutting, and in the future I will be giving you guys updates. It's the bottom cutting, and there's an activated growth point, but just barely activated. So I think once it gets going, it'll be a little bit quicker. It's probably a little too wet. I'm gonna dump out this water. Yeah, it's just the most teeniest, tiniest cutting. I'm not super concerned or scared about Blood Moon because by all accounts, it's a pretty easygoing and fast growing anthurium. I'm just nervous right now because it is such a minuscule little stem cutting without a leaf yet, and obviously no new root growth because it's probably not gonna push out roots at this point. So I think I'll just be semi-nervous until I have a new leaf. And after that point, I feel like it's going to be pretty easygoing. I think it's gonna be easier than Midnight Velvet. Anyways, that is it for today's updates. Thank you guys so much for watching. It wasn't as planty as I had thought it would be looking at the recording time, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Also, I just want to apologize for the long absence on YouTube. I wanted to enjoy my holiday. I didn't have time to pre-film when I was gone. It also was quite surreal coming back because when I left, it was like mid-September. It was still quite warm, and it felt like summer was just kind of like tapering down. When I came back, boom, there's like leaves all over the ground. It's cold. I've got the heater on, the fireplace going sometimes, and it's spooky season. I feel very much out of sorts, but I'm very much looking forward to getting back into my rhythm now that I'm almost over my jet lag coming home. But I hope you guys have been having a lovely few weeks. I hope your day has been wonderful so far. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah!